In the farthest reaches of the dream kingdom, where the clouds fold like pillows and the winds whisper lullabies, lives a mysterious and gentle figure, the Sandman. He is an enchanted being with wavy hair the color of golden sand, deep-set eyes as bright as miniature moons, and wears a cloak made of soft fabrics that seem sewn from the moonlight itself. His footsteps are silent, and his presence brings an immediate calm to everything around him. Every night, the Sandman roams the skies with his gleaming golden hourglass, a magical piece filled with shimmering sand that descends grain by grain, spreading serene dreams throughout the world. With each movement of time in his hourglass, he blows a little of his magical sand, and gentle dreams begin to blossom in sleeping minds. But that night, something was different. As he walked among the stars, preparing for his nightly routine, the Sandman looked at the hourglass, and his heart stopped for a moment. Only a single grain of golden sand remained. He frowned softly. This had never happened before. The hourglass replenished itself, fueled by the world's good dreams, but now it was nearly empty. "What's happening to the world's dreams?" he whispered, watching the last grain dance silently within the crystal dome. Worried, the Sandman sat on a low, soft cloud where small fireflies surrounded him as if to console his sadness. Questions and uncertainties swirled in his mind. If that last grain fell without replacement, perhaps the world's dreams would be extinguished. He knew he had to act, and quickly. With a delicate gesture, he sealed the hourglass with a ribbon of golden light, preventing the last grain from falling prematurely. Then he grabbed his bag of guiding stars and set off in search of answers. "I need to find out why dreams are disappearing and how to bring the sand back," he said, his voice soft as the night wind. His first destination would be the Valley of Forgotten Dreams, a place where old memories and unfulfilled dreams slept beneath layers of mist. Perhaps there lay the first clue. And so, with his cape billowing behind him and the hourglass clutched to his chest, the Sandman floated among the clouds, determined to save the dreams of all the children of the world. The journey had begun, and time was running out. The sky began to change as the Sandman approached the Valley of Forgotten Dreams. The stars, normally twinkling and cheerful, seemed more distant, as if trapped in an ancient silence. The clouds grew thicker, a grayish lilac, and the breeze carried whispers of memories that never quite became complete dreams. The Sandman descended gently onto a clearing made of mist and petals of memories. Around him were unfinished toys, pages from books no one read anymore, chalk drawings floating in the air, slowly fading. Each represented a forgotten dream, an idea dormant in someone's heart. He walked among the memories, his golden cloak billowing as if swimming in mist. With his fingers, he touched objects here and there, triggering soft echoes of children's laughter and melodies lost in time. suddenly, a soft light flickered through the clouds. It was a small creature of stardust in cotton, Leary, the guardian of the valley. "Sandman?" she asked, her voice a warm wisp of wind. "You never come here. Did something happen?" The Sandman nodded slowly and opened his sealed hourglass. Leary approached and peered closely at the last grain of golden sand that shone timidly within the glass. "No," she murmured, "this should never happen." "Dreams are fading, Leary. The sand is no longer renewing itself. I felt that perhaps forgotten dreams could show me where to begin." Leary hovered in the air thoughtfully. Then she waved her small, translucent hands. "Come, there's something you need to see." She led him through corridors of mist to a huge sleeping tree, its branches reaching for the sky and its roots made of threads of remembrance. It was the tree of unfulfilled dreams, where all unfulfilled dreams rested. In the center, there was a hollow space in the trunk, as if something had been ripped from it. "The oldest root is gone," Leary said mournfully. "It was the source of the earliest childhood dreams. Without it, the deepest dreams fail to blossom." The Sandman touched the void carefully. He felt a heavy absence there, a stillness that shouldn't be there. "I need to find it," he said. "Perhaps that root was taken or forgotten." Leary nodded sadly. "Perhaps it's beyond the valley. They say there's a place, a desert where dreams never came to be, a place called the Silent Horizon." The Sandman looked up at the distant sky, where the blue was gently darkening. "Then that's where I must go." And with a final nod of gratitude, he departed again, taking with him the hope of restoring the sand of dreams and rekindling the light in the sleeping eyes of all the children of the world. The Sandman was crossing the sky toward the unknown. The valley of forgotten dreams was behind him, and before him stretched something he had never visited in all his nights of work: the Silent Horizon. It was a region shrouded in mystery. They said dreams dared not be born there, where the silence was so profound that not even the song of the stars dared penetrate. As he approached, the clouds disappeared completely, and the sky took on a pale, empty golden hue. Below, an immense desert stretched, not of ordinary sand, but of grayish dust he had never dreamed of. The ground seemed made of forgotten grains, particles of imagination that had never coalesced into form. The Sandman landed gently on the plain, his cloak moving in slow circles, as if he felt the weight of absence. It was a beautiful place in a way, but there was something profoundly sad about it. No trace of laughter, no trace of a dream. He walked for a while until he noticed something in the distance, a small, solitary structure made of pale stone and blue sky moss. It was an old clock, stopped, partially buried in the dust. He approached and read the engraved words: "Where time does not dream, the world slumbers in silence." The Sandman touched the dial and felt a slight tremor beneath his feet. A whisper echoed in the distance, a whisper different from the others, like a forgotten prayer. From within the clock emerged a small, almost transparent figure,
a child made of sand and wind. Her eyes were large and sad, and she didn't speak. She just looked at the Sandman with a mixture of hope and longing. He knelt before her and held out his hand. "Are you lost?" he asked gently. The child nodded. With a slow gesture, she pointed to the necklace the Sandman carried, the golden hourglass, her eyes fixed on the last grain of sand. Then she brought her hands to her heart and revealed something surprising, an identical grain, glowing with the same light. The Sandman was taken aback. You, you are a dream that was never dreamed?" She nodded again with a shy smile. That was it. This child was a fragment of the first forgotten dream, a piece of the lost root he sought. Without a word, she handed the grain to the Sandman, who welcomed it as a precious gift. As the two grains approached, they began to glow brighter, as if recognizing each other. The Sandman smiled softly. "Thank you for existing, even though no one has dreamed of you yet." The child blew a kiss of wind and dissolved into golden light spreading across the desert sky. And for the first time, a soft cloud appeared on the silent horizon. The Sandman looked up at the sky. There was still much to do, but now he had new hope. With the new grain of sand glowing softly beside the last in his hourglass, the Sandman felt a subtle warmth radiate through his chest. It was as if that small spark had reignited something within the dormant time. But he knew it still wasn't enough. He needed more fragments, more roots, more dreams. Guided by a light current of golden wind, a trail left by the child of the desert, the Sandman followed to the edge of the sky, where time flowed differently. There, hidden within the folds of twilight, was a place known only to the oldest guardians, the Garden of Sleepy Hours. It was an enchanted place, where each flower represented an hour of dreaming. Trees grew in spirals, and drops of liquid time dripped from their branches. The air smelled sweet of lavender and stars. Small bells hung from the leaves and played soft melodies whenever the wind blew. The Sandman landed at the foot of a bridge of mist and walked between trails made of floral clocks. In the center of the garden lay a sleeping being, a magical creature called Auril, the guardian of the gentle hours. Its body was long and serene, made of golden threads and clockwork leaves. Its eyes closed, its breathing rhythmic as a lullaby. The Sandman approached carefully and knelt beside it. "Auril," he whispered, "the hours are slipping away. The sand of dreams is almost gone. I need your help." Auril didn't respond immediately. One of the garden bells chimed softly, and a fragrant breeze enveloped the space. Slowly, the guardian's eyes opened, deep blue like lakes of time. "You're late, old friend," he said, in a voice that seemed to come from inside a pocket watch. "The hours have been sleeping for a long time. But there is still hope," the Sandman insisted, pointing to the 2 grains in his hourglass. "I have received a grain of an undreamed dream. There are more out there. I only need to find them." Auril gazed at the grains reverently and raised one of her slender hands. A golden twig sprouted from her palm and blossomed there, a newly awakened flower of time. "If you wish to find the other fragments, You must cross the yawning minutes, an enchanted river that leads to the hall of sleeping echoes. But beware, time there bends and falls asleep easily. If you hesitate, you may become trapped in a dream that never ends. The Sandman nodded his thanks. With the new golden twig in his hand, now a living part of the flower of time, he felt his path unfold. Before leaving, Ariel lightly touched his forehead. Take this blessing. It will protect you from the distortions of time while you daydream. Then the Sandman departed, crossing the garden where the hours still dreamed silently. Each step was lighter, each breath steadier. The hourglass was beginning to glow again, but the journey was still just beginning.
O Sandman walked calmly, feeling the breeze of time whisper through the threads of his cloak. Ahead of him, the scenery began to change. The flowers of the Garden of Sleepy Hours were left behind, and now the air grew denser, as if each breath were slowly drawn by sleep itself. Soon, he reached the banks of the River of Yawning Minutes, an enchanted river flowing with mirror-like water, where each drop seemed to contain a small fragment of a dream. The banks were made of white cushions and golden leaves that floated like boats. The sound of the current was like gentle yawns, and time stretched out there as if inviting everyone to lie down and fall asleep. In the center of the river floated a delicate vessel, a small blue velvet boat with sails made from the pages of forgotten tales. The Sandman climbed aboard with light steps, tightly clutching his hourglass with the 2 shining grains and the flower of time given to him by Auril. As soon as he settled in, the little boat began to follow the gentle flow of the river. Gradually, images began to appear around him, reflections of old dreams, a child flying among stars, a castle made of pillows, a dragon made of blankets. The Sandman watched everything tenderly, knowing that each image was a minute that had become a dream. But then, something strange happened. The water ahead began to darken gently, and the boat slowed. The Sandman looked around and realized he had entered a part of the river where time yawned so loudly it almost stopped. It was the heart of slowness. There the images blurred, as if being forgotten. Soft voices said, "Just a little longer. Close your eyes. Rest now." And for a moment, the Sandman felt his head grow heavy. His eyes closed for a second. His cloak seemed to grow heavier. He almost fell asleep. But then, the flower of time in his chest glowed. A soft sound like a gentle ticking gently awakened him. The Sandman opened his eyes and saw that the boat had stopped. Before him, emerging from the river mist, appeared a graceful figure made of silver threads woven from time. Minuta, the guardian of the sleeping minutes. She had sleepy but watchful eyes and a serene expression. "Sandman," she said slowly, as if each word yawned, "you have almost fallen into the eternal rest of those who wander without time." He nodded respectfully. "I must cross the river. Dreams are fading. My hourglass is almost empty." Minuta looked at the grains of sand and the flower in her hand. "You have already awakened for an hour and found a dream undreamed of. You are on the right path. But now it is time to harvest the minutes of hope." She reached out and blew a light breeze over the river. From the surface, tiny golden lights rose, each representing a gentle minute rescued from oblivion. The Sandman held the hourglass. The lights entered it like sparkling seeds. The glow intensified, and for the first time since the journey began, the sand began to grow. With a slight smile, Minuta touched his forehead. Follow the river to its end. There you will find the Hall of Sleeping Echoes. There live the last echoes of ancient dreams, and perhaps the answers you seek. The Sandman thanked her silently and resumed his journey, now with the hourglass slowly glowing on his chest. Hope, at last, was being born again, 1 minute at a time.
A blue velvet boat glided gently to the final bank of the river of yawning minutes, where the golden mist began to dissipate and reveal a new scene, an immense crystalline structure, wreathed in vines of moonlight and enveloped by breezes that whispered lullabies. It was the legendary Hall of Sleeping Echoes, an ancient temple built of soft memories and forgotten words, where the last echoes of ancient dreams still whispered between columns made of light and silence. Its ceiling resembled the sky at dusk, and the floor glowed with the soft glow of faded constellations. The Sandman stepped there reverently, his golden robe trailing like a calm wave. In his hands, the hourglass now held 3 golden grains and a thin layer of new sand which pulsed gently like a reborn heart. As soon as he entered, he heard the voices. They came from all sides, soft, repetitive, like memories that insist on returning the moment your eyes close. Do you remember that dream where you were floating in the sky? And that bike ride among the stars? Do you still dream of the world you built under your blanket? The Sandman followed the voices to the center of the room, where there was a large spiral made of shimmering glass. It was the Circle of Echoes, a place where every sound once dreamed lay, waiting for someone to hear it again. In the middle of the spiral, lying as if asleep for 1,000 years, lay a very ancient creature, Ilaria, the guardian of dreams forgotten by childhood itself. She looked soft and serene, with long hair like strands of moonlight, and wore a robe made from fragments of stories never told. Her eyes were closed, but the tears falling from the corners seemed to shine like stardust. The Sandman approached and knelt silently. "Ilaria," he said softly, "I need your help. The dreams are fading. The hourglass is almost empty." Ilaria didn't answer immediately, but then the voices around her began to focus on one. "Do you remember your first dream, Sandman?" He fell silent. "The one where you were just a breeze and wished to bring rest to the world." The Sandman lowered his eyes, touching the hourglass with his hands. "Yes, I remember." And in that instant, a small crack in the spiral glowed brightly. From within it emerged an ancient echo, the Sandman's own first dream, a bubble of light pulsing with hope and tenderness. The echo floated to the hourglass and without hesitation entered it. The sand shone once more, now 4 grains, and the energy there grew more vivid with each passing moment. Ilaria then opened her eyes. "You remembered, and by remembering, you gave the world what it needs most, the right to dream again." She reached out her frail hand and touched the center of the hourglass. Small golden threads came out and spread throughout the hall, awakening the dormant echoes. Sounds of laughter, light footsteps, children's voices, and sighs of wonder began to echo from every corner. The hall was alive again,
and with it the hope that lost dreams could be remembered and dreamed again. The Sandman arose gratefully. There was still much to restore, but now he carried with him the echoes of the past, the moments of hope, and the dreams never dreamed. The hourglass was breathing again, and the time of dreams, little by little, began to flow again.
Leaving behind the hall of sleeping echoes, now filled with laughter and awakened sounds, the Sandman ascended once more into the silent skies, guided by the currents of restored time. His hourglass glowed softly against his chest, carrying precious grains of magical sound, forgotten dreams, moments of hope, and reborn memories. But there was one final destination he still needed to visit, the highest place of all, where only those who truly remember who they are can reach, the moon of bright memory. It was a moon unlike any other. It didn't revolve in the sky. It floated in time, hidden between the heartbeats of a dreamer. To reach it, the Sandman had to close his eyes, take a deep breath, and let himself be guided by the memory of his own first breath. When he opened them again, it was there. Before him, a soft moon, its surface silken with craters shaped like ancient symbols. Around it floated sleeping stars and forgotten thoughts. The ground was made of golden dust and petals of memories igniting with each step. In the center of the moon stood a tall, ancient mirror framed by dream roots and threads of moonlight. It was the mirror of entire memory. The Sandman approached it reverently. His reflection looked different there, younger perhaps, or truer. The mirror began to glow, and images emerged. Children dreaming in silence, dimmed stars, toys tucked away for fear of growing up. And then a powerful vision filled the center of the glass, the lost root of the tree of unfinished dreams, shrouded in mist and forgotten in a fold of time. It still existed, but it lay dormant deep within the center of the moon. A soft voice echoed, formless and disembodied. To restore the dreams of the world, you must awaken what has been forgotten within yourself. The Sandman closed his eyes. He remembered the first day he had scattered dream sand over a child. He remembered the joy of seeing a faint smile as she slept. He remembered the comforting silence of the night. And then he remembered the pain of watching the world forget its dreams, of seeing children rushing about, adults restless, nights without magic, of watching the sand slowly dry night after night. But no more. He opened his eyes, now filled with light. With calm steps, he walked to the center of the moon and placed the hourglass on the ground. It began to glow brightly, and the 4 grains within it fused, creating a pure golden spark. The sand grew, rising like a spiral of light and penetrating the moon's soil. The forgotten root awakened. It grew in seconds, enveloping the mirror and blossoming into a luminous tree with leaves made of dreams yet undreamed. It stretched toward the sky, scattering dream dust throughout the space. The hourglass was now full again, with living golden sand, pulsing as if it had a heart. The Sandman smiled silently. He knew what he needed to do now. It was time to return to the world and spread dreams again. With the hourglass now completely filled with living golden sand, the Sandman silently left the moon of bright memory. His cloak rippled like a liquid constellation, and his eyes held the calm of one who had rediscovered his purpose. He floated gently through the sky, descending back to the world where dreams awaited him. The stars twinkled brighter as he passed. Some even smiled. As he passed through the clouds, the night felt different, as if time, even in silence, was in step with his heart. The first child he saw slept in a small house at the edge of the field, with blankets pulled up to their chin and a moon-shaped pillow. The Sandman stopped before the open window. The night wind gently blew in, and he stood there, watching for a moment. It was time. He lifted the hourglass and turned it gently. The sand began to fall, not quickly, but like petals of light. Each falling grain transformed into golden particles that pierced the air and gently fell on the child's closed eyes. Touching his eyelashes, the particles expanded, and then the first dream was born. A forest where star butterflies played among trees made of music. The child smiled in his sleep. The Sandman stood still for a moment. This was more than magic. It was the rebirth of hope. He continued his journey, visiting a village in the mountains, a house on a lake, a room in a silent city. Each home sheltered someone waiting, even without knowing it, for that moment. With each dream that was born, the sky shone brighter. The Sandman stopped before each child like someone watering a flower. He blew a little sand onto the pillow, and from there, gentle adventures were born. Castles made of shells, dancing fireflies, stuffed dragons that whispered stories. But it wasn't just the little ones who received the visit. In a lonely house, he found a man asleep in an armchair, a book open on his lap. Blowing a grain of sand over him, the Sandman saw an old dream blossom. A bicycle flying across the rooftops, just as he had dreamed as a boy. And so, throughout the night, the Sandman spread once again what the world had lost: the right to imagine while sleeping, the comfort of the inexplicable, the gentle embrace of the invisible. As the last star began to descend toward the horizon, he looked at his hourglass. There was still sand there, alive and pulsating. But something was still missing. He could not leave without first visiting the place where it all began, the Valley of Forgotten Dreams. It was time to return there, not to seek what was lost, but to awaken what could blossom. And with that calm and resolute thought, the Sandman set off again, leaving behind him a trail of dreams that floated like golden dust across the dawn sky.
The sky was beginning to gently lighten, with the first shades of lilac and pink tinting the horizon. But the Sandman wasn't finished with his journey yet. He flew silently among the clouds, guided now not by time, but by a deep feeling: gratitude. When he finally reached the Valley of Forgotten Dreams, the place seemed different. The mist still hung, but there was something new in the air. As if even before his arrival, the valley had known, already been waiting for this moment. As he touched the ground of petals and mist,
the Sandman was greeted by Leary, the small creature of stardust and cotton who had guided him there at the beginning of his journey. She smiled. "You have returned." The Sandman nodded tenderly. In his hands, the hourglass still glowed softly, filled with golden sand, alive and sparkling. "I've returned to give the valley something it never had, second chances." With slow steps, the Sandman walked to the heart of the valley, the field where unfinished dreams rested. Forgotten toys, ideas cast aside, silent desires that had once been important, all sleeping in silence. He held the hourglass high. Then a light breeze blew over it. The golden sand flowed out like a luminous dance, spreading across the valley floor. Each grain touched an object, a memory, a sleepy shape. And there, little dream flowers were born. The flowers were soft, round, with petals made of sky blue velvet and pastel light. Some sang softly, others emitted small childlike giggles. They were dreams being reborn. Not exactly the same as before, but new versions, gentler, more mature, more truer. Leary watched, her eyes welling with emotion. "You are returning to the valley what it thought it had lost forever." The Sandman smiled, kneeling before one of these newborn flowers. It was made of colored paper with a small paintbrush in the center. Touching it, he saw the image of a child who had stopped drawing and now, in his dream, was once again painting stars with invisible ink. Other flowers appeared around it, one with a suspended melody, another with light footsteps, one made of bottled laughter. Each flower was a new beginning, a new sleep, a new hope. The tree of incomplete dreams, which still lay dormant at the bottom of the valley, began to stir. Its branches trembled gently as if sensing a call. The Sandman walked over to it, touched its bark with the palm of his hand, and said in a calm voice, "You are no longer incomplete, you have been too patient." In response, the tree blossomed fully, opening golden leaves and translucent fruits where little universes shone in miniature. And then a soft sound echoed throughout the valley. The sound of all the dreams that had not yet been born, now ready to take flight. The entire valley filled with soft light. The darkness gave way to the soft hues of dawn. Time there began to breathe slowly, in peace. The Sandman looked at his hourglass. There was still sand, but now it wasn't just his responsibility. It belonged to the world again. Leary approached and took her tiny hand in his. "You have returned what no one knew was missing." And with that, the Sandman prepared for the last leg of his journey. There was still one special place he needed to visit, the heart of a child who had stopped dreaming. And there he would blow the most beautiful grain of sand from his hourglass. The sky now glowed with the soft hues of dawn. The stars were beginning to retreat, yawning gently as they slipped behind the clouds. Dream creatures nestled in their places, and the whole world sighed, as if knowing something had changed, even without understanding exactly what. But for the Sandman, there was still one last mission. He flew over a sleeping city. The streets were silent, the rooftops covered in dew, and there, in a half-open window high up in a simple building, he found her, a child with messy hair and a tired expression.
She slept on her side, hugging an old pillow, her eyes gently closed, but something was missing. The Sandman landed beside the bed with the lightness of a summer breeze. He studied the girl's face. There was a different silence there, not the silence of sleep, but of absence. She was one of those who had stopped dreaming, perhaps out of sadness, maybe because he was in a hurry, maybe because no one told him bedtime stories anymore. He looked at the hourglass, now full, vibrant, brighter than ever. Each grain in it was the fruit of everything he had experienced, the moments of hope, the dreams never dreamed, the echoes rescued, the flowers of the valley, and the reborn root. But there was still one last very special grain, small, shy, and at the same time extraordinary. It was the grain of a new beginning. The Sandman turned the hourglass carefully, and instead of blowing many dreams as before, he leaned close to the girl's ear and let fall just that grain, just one, silently. It hovered in the air for a second, and touching her forehead, shone like a lone star in the still, dark sky. Then something happened. A small smile appeared on the girl's face, at first subtle, then full, soft as a rising sun. And behind her eyelids, a whole world lit up. She was dreaming. She flew on a cloud hang glider. She played with celestial cats in cotton fields. She painted the sky with fingers of light. And she laughed with the lightness of someone remembering what it was like to be free in sleep. The Sandman stood there for a few moments, simply watching. Then he touched the air with his fingertips and left a small golden feather on the girl's pillow. It was his mark, a reminder that dreams had returned. Outside, the sky was already preparing for the day. The Sandman arose, contemplating the world. The stars still sang softly. The hourglass pulsed in his chest. But now it no longer needed to be full all the time. Now each dream dreamed would replenish its sand. Because dreams lived again in every home, every pillow, every child who closed her eyes with hope again. He looked at the horizon and smiled. The night was ending, but the dreams finally could begin.